Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD. I'm running a little bit late here tonight. I had a day that went a little longer than I had planned, so I apologize for getting here a few minutes late. We have a moderate-sized crowd tonight. We'll have to see if we get more people to show up or not. What this means is unless more people show up, we may be able to take more than one question per person, but so we'll have to see if that happens or not. For those of you that are new to the webinars, welcome here. And to those of you that are back again, I'm glad to see some familiar names here on my participant board here tonight. The way these webinars work, each one is a little bit different because it depends on the questions you ask. And so we get to create the webinar together. So I look forward to hearing the kind of questions you have tonight. Every now and then I get a curveball thrown at me, but usually I'm able to help you with most of the questions that you ask. The way that you get to write your questions to me, there's a message box, a chat box down at the bottom of the right-hand side of your screen. Write your question in there. I ask as you're writing the question that you only hit the enter key one time. If you hit enter more than one time, it actually creates multiple messages on my end of the screen, which makes it very hard for me to manage and follow what's happening with those questions. During the webinar tonight, I will post questions. They will show up on the screen for those of you that are watching this live that are participating in the webinar as it's going on right now. Some of you will be looking at this in the recorded version tomorrow, and you will not be able to see those questions posted. They only show up for the person that's in the webinar. I will therefore go ahead and read those questions so people can hear it. And as I've said a number of these webinars, I plan at some point to take the recordings of these webinars and actually turn them into a podcast. So I'm also reading the questions so that that the people listening in on the podcast can actually hear what the questions are about too. During the webinar tonight, I'm going to be doing some screen shares, so you'll be able to see my computer and some of the resources I have written for you in the Treat Lyme book. The Treat Lyme book, as many of you know, is what you can find at the main Lyme disease information site that I have, which is www.treatlyme.net. On there within the Treat Lyme book, you'll find many, many, many helpful resources. In fact, most of the things you have questions about Lyme, I have written an article about, okay? Most of them, not all of them. And I'm continually adding to the book and updating existing articles as well too. So it's a pretty comprehensive guide. And if you haven't subscribed to it, as you'll see tonight when I go through the webinar, you may have reasons you want to subscribe to it because you'll see how useful it is. So I'll do some screen shares there later tonight too. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I see that we've got a number of more people that have shown up as I've been introducing the webinar tonight. So let's go ahead and take the first question here. Hello, Kathy. Let's see, I have compound heterozygous MTHFR defects. Is synthetic folic acid that's found in enriched foods and some supplements harmful to me? Should I avoid synthetic folic acid while taking L5-MTHF? So it's an interesting question. I'll be glad to answer that. But Kathy, I want to explain what MTHFR is to everyone first so that we're all on the same page. So MTHFR, everyone, are the initials for an enzyme called methotetrahydrofolate reductase. Okay, that's a big long word. And what that is, that's an enzyme that is responsible for converting folate in our diet into an activated form of folate. And that activated form of folate is the L5-methotetrahydrofolate, or the L5-MTHFR that you ask about in your question, okay? That's activated folate. So there is a genetic defect where people have the genes, the gene material that programs how the MTHFR enzyme looks like. There are some defects that you can have in the genes that program that MTHFR. And you happen to have one of those defects. You have something called a compound heterozygous, and I'm not going to go through what all those words mean, but you have defects on two genes. Okay, that's what that means. Okay, so because of that defect, the programming that forms that enzyme, that determines how it looks, is causing that enzyme not to turn out and look and behave properly. And so therefore, you're not having adequate conversion of diet folate into activated folate, okay? Now, here's why that's important. So the conversion of diet folate into activated folate is one of the first steps in a detox pathway that at the bottom results in the master detox hormone called, or a chemical called glutathione, right? Glutathione is what's used by the liver and is used in every one of our cells to detox most of the toxins that we have to deal with, all right? But to get to glutathione, there's a number of chemical reactions that start with this conversion of diet folate. And these are smaller detox reactions too. So we could just give you glutathione. That would help a lot with detox problems. But it wouldn't impact these other smaller detox reactions up here that get to glutathione. So we need to fix what's going on up here, right? So the way that we fix this MTHFR problem is we have you take activated folate. That's the L5-MTHF that Kathy is writing about here, all right? So, Kathy, the real problem isn't with synthetics. So the folate that we get in our diet would be the same as the synthetic folate that you find in some vitamins, okay? It isn't going to hurt you. It's just that it's not being used. It's not helpful, all right? So the main thing, you can get these synthetics in your diet, and you can get them what you're calling synthetic in your diet, but you can also get them in supplements, and they're not going to harm you. It's just that they don't hurt you. You still need to go ahead and get the L5-MTHF that you talk about here, okay? So everyone, how do you find out if you have this problem? Well, there's a test you can do. It is the genetic test, and one way to get it done on your own, actually, without having to rely upon a doctor, is to order a test kit through a company called 23andMe, and that's a spit test, and it's a genetic analysis, okay? 23andMe gives you the raw data, and then you use that raw data and you run it through a program that you can get on, that is online, actually. It's through a company called geneticgenie.org. That's GeneticGenie.org. They have a web page. You go there. Actually, through Genetic Genie, there's a link that you can use to get to 23andMe to order your test kit, okay? And then you go back to Genetic Genie, and on that home page, there is a methylation analysis link. You click on that, and then you upload all of your 23andMe information there, and then they spit out a report for you that says, yep, you got an MTHFR problem, okay? And then once you know you have that problem, then you correct it. You correct it by giving the activated folate, and for most people also you correct it by getting a methylated vitamin B12. So what works, what I like to do, is to use a product that has both the methylated B12 and the activated folate in it. That's a product called MethylGuard. It's made by Thorne. I have people start at 1 pill 1 time a day for an adult, and then after 7 days you increase it to 2 pills 1 time a day, and then another 7 days to 3 pills 1 time a day. You have to go slow, and some people even 1 pill is too much. So one of the problems that can happen is you correct for this problem, you basically open up this detox roadblock that has existed, okay? And when you start detoxing all these things that have held up behind the roadblock, it triggers inflammation chemicals called cytokines. And many of you know, I posted up earlier today, actually 2 days ago, I believe it was, a whole new article I have about cytokines. And as many of you now know from reading that article, and if you didn't get a chance to look at it, I'll show it to you later. It's one of the latest articles that I have posted in the Treat Lyme book. Basically, the things that trigger cytokines are what make you feel bad in Lyme. Okay? When you have Lyme symptoms, you actually have too many cytokine symptoms. They're inflammation chemicals made by the immune system. But they also get made in high amounts when you start detoxing. They get made in increased amounts when you have too many yeast in your intestines. They may get made in too high amounts if you have chronic virus infections, okay? So all these things add up together to create too many cytokines, which ultimately leads to you feeling bad in Lyme disease, all right? And you can trigger more cytokines as you start moving those toxins out. So some people, this rate of using MethylGuard that I said, which start with 1 pill, and then after a week go up to 2 pills, for some people that's just too fast. You got to go even slower, okay? And the only way you know is to jump in and try and see if you're going to need it or not. People that should think about having MTHFR problems are people that tend to be very sensitive to medicines or sensitive to supplements, okay? So they tend to be people that have medicine sensitivity issues, all right? All right. So that's a long-winded explanation, Kathy. I know you thought this would be quick, but I needed to make sure that I explained the whole issue so that people would know. All right. So I want to just do a quick screen share here, everyone, so that you know where you can find more information later to come back and look at. And what I want to do is start with showing you the Treat Lyme book. Okay. So this is the Treat Lyme book, and this is the homepage of the Treat Lyme book. Within the Treat Lyme book, there are chapters. All right, I just clicked on that. It's in the table of contents. And so you can see I have information in here about what do you do about biofilms, for instance. There's a whole chapter on sleep over here. There's another chapter on test, okay? But for cytokines, there is this chapter called Herxheimer reaction in cytokines. All right, and here's this new article that I just posted. It's got a video on it, and also does a very detailed explanation about cytokines, okay? All right, now, the other feature I just added, I'm just going to show everyone now, is I've added a new tab here called New Updates. So it used to be you had to kind of listen, you had to wait for my newsletters to come out, or you had to kind of just like be very judicious about always looking at every chapter. But now I have this tab called New Updates, so you can see when I've either written a whole new article or I've updated the treatment guidelines like I did last week. I've updated those, okay? So you can see what my latest work is right here, so you can stay current. And this is something you might want to check in on the new updates once a week, once every 2 weeks, okay? Generally, I'm putting together 3 new articles or updating articles about 3 times a month, sometimes more than that, okay? All right. And then in terms of this detox issue of the MTHFR, you would find the article about it that I have in the Treat Lyme book under the detoxification chapter. And you would look at the article called MTHFR Detoxification, a Lyme bite, okay? And within this, there is a whole video that I've created before about the topic, okay? So this gives you the information, and in the written section here, I tell you about what do you do, what do you take for this problem as well, too, all right? Okay, so let me go back. All right, thanks for that question, Kathy. So let me move on here. I'm just removing that question from my list here. Hello, Pat. Let's see. Hi, my wife is getting better except for her right knee. Would prolozone therapy help? So prolozone therapy, I think what you mean by that is it is a form of what's called prolotherapy that uses ozone, okay? So prolotherapy basically works by doing injections, using a needle and injecting a substance into an area that's hurting or is in pain. And when you do the injections of a substance in there, it leads to further inflammation that increases blood flow to the area so that that area will heal, okay? And in this case, they use ozone. And what ozone does, ozone can also kill germs. That's why it's being used. So what they're hoping to do is probably because your wife's knee is hurting, they want to cause more inflammation to get better blood flow so it will start healing. And then they're going to use the ozone to help kill Lyme germs. Does it work? Sometimes. I can't say whether it's universally going to help her or not. I can't even give you what the success rate is because it isn't something that I do in my practice. I don't know the practical basis from experience as to what % of the time that it works. But it's something that's a reasonable option to try. It is very much used by doctors that work within the alternative medicine realm. If you tend to go to a prescription pad only doctor that doesn't work with herbs or thinks out of the box like I do and some of the other integrated medicine doctors do, they're probably not going to be familiar with the prolotherapy. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Pat. Well, good luck to your wife, too. Go ahead and remove that question. All right. Hello, Linda. Hold on here, man. I got to just get a sip of water. All right. Is having head pressure like a band around my head, feeling like my head is filled with air, and a weird forehead feeling with depersonalization, random burning spots on my head, indicative of Babesia or Bartonella? My worst symptoms are weakness, depersonalization, and my head feels filled with air. So my initial read on that, and I would need to know a few more things, obviously, but just that kind of general description that you gave there has me thinking more of Bartonella than it does Babesia. Okay, so let's look at why. All right, so Bartonella, everyone, generally, I like to diagnose Bartonella based on what the symptoms tell me. I don't rely on testing. And the reason I don't rely on testing is we estimate about 30 strains of Bartonella, and we only have decent testing for 2 strains. And those strains are something called Bartonella cantana and Bartonella henselae, all right? So we can do antibody testing, or we could use a lab called Galaxy Labs that does DNA, PCR DNA testing. But the bottom line is even the Galaxy Lab, which tends to be a better test than antibody testing, even their lab has a big problem, which is they don't test for the other 28 strains, okay? So because the testing isn't reliable, I like to make my decisions to treat for Bartonella based on what the symptoms tell me. All right, so the symptoms that make you think of Bartonella are cognitive impairment, so your thinking isn't good, and that thinking impairment is a lot worse than what your energy impairment is. Okay, that's one thing. It usually tends to be thinking that's significantly worse, all right? Pain on the soles of the feet, increased daytime sweating, anxiety that's kind of persistent and ongoing, bladder issues where you have urge to pee or you have to pee frequently, restless legs can make us think about it, head pressure often, not so much the band-like pattern you're describing, but more of a head pressure kind of thing, and psychiatric issues, and that can be depersonalization, anxiety, depression. Those are some things that make me think of Bartonella. Also, people that have tremors, or some people describe kind of an internal buzzing or jitteriness. That can also be part of what Bartonella looks like, okay? Now, Babesia, on the other hand, can also give headaches, but they tend to be more frontal headaches. People with Babesia tend to have more anxiety, panic attacks. They may have air hunger, although you can get a little air hunger with Bartonella too. Air hunger means you just have a feeling like you can't get enough air in from time to time, okay? Also, things that make me think about Babesia are racing and skipping of the heart, increased deja vu experiences. It's one of the stranger symptoms, I think, in this disorder, but people with Babesia often have increased amounts of deja vu, okay? So that would make me think about it. Coughing sometimes can be part of Babesia as well too. And just terrible, terrible fatigue can sometimes be part of Babesia. So as I hear what you just said, I'm thinking more Bartonella, all right? But for me to really give you the best idea, I would need to do some discussion with you one-on-one and just see if I could tease out even better, all right? Okay, good luck to you, Linda. And so everyone, if you're trying to see how to determine whether you have Babesia or Bartonella, I have written an article about that. You would find it in the How to Diagnose chapter. And you would find it in this article. Take a look at the article called "It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia: The Signs and Symptoms." Okay, so in this article, I list out all the signs and the symptoms, and I tell you also why I don't believe in testing even for Babesia. All right, I just think it's throwing money away personally. All right, so let's go back here. All right, good luck to you, Linda. Thank you for that question. So let's see. So I'm just trying to move her question out and get on to the next question here. This is from Melanie. Let's see. Do you recognize KPU, HPU, pyroluria disorder as a factor in Lyme and co-infections? So the person that has written a lot about KPU, HPU disorder is a guy named Dietrich Klinghardt, who also is based out of the Seattle area as well too. Some people think the way that I treat Lyme is a little bit out there because the way I use integrative medicine, Dietrich is even more out there than what I am. And I say that with a lot of respect. Dietrich and I run into each other somewhat often and have great discussions. But I just don't think he's right on this one. So Dietrich has some brilliant ideas. I think he kind of pushes the envelope in terms of the thinking in the world of Lyme disease. And some of his ideas are crazy and some of them are crazy, okay? So he's crazy in the sense that he pushes the boundary and he comes up with some brilliant ideas sometimes. And I have incorporated some of his ideas into my treatment approaches. But there's some issues I just think he's wrong. And I think some of his ideas just are not right. And I think this is one. I just don't find much benefit at treating for the KPU, HPU pyroluria disorder. I just don't, okay? So to answer your question, all right? But that's, I love some of the stuff that Dietrich comes up with. It's just this one I don't think he's got quite right. All right, good luck to you, Melanie. All right, let's see here. Hello, Marisol. Let's see. Hi, does peripheral neuropathy heal? And what supplements can help the neuropathy pain and heal the nerves? I'm taking curcumin, alpha lipoic acid, vitamin C, detoxing, and my pain is unbearable. So Marisol, first of all, I'm glad to see that you worked out getting the question posted tonight. Marisol had written me about how to post questions, so you figured that out. So again, the key thing, everyone, you got to hit the enter button, okay? I think what's confused some people, and I think it may have confused Marisol too, is that I said don't hit enter, but that was till the question is written. Then you do have to hit enter so that it will post. And I think that was what the problem that Marisol was having here. So Marisol, good. I'm glad to see you were able to get your question through. All right, so peripheral neuropathy, everyone, means that your nerves are damaged, okay? They're injured. And that injury can reverse as you get the Lyme under control. There are some things you can do to help the nerves heal. One is to work with glutathione or things that raise glutathione. So glutathione is the master antioxidant made in every one of our cells that helps detox. It also repairs everything, okay? So I call it the great fixer because it removes toxins that harm you. It also repairs cell damage. It's a very, very powerful antioxidant that can help get rid of damage, okay? So you want to do something when you have nerve injury to raise glutathione. One way to do that is take glutathione, and you can do it in a liposomal form, meaning it's microscopically wrapped in fat to increase its absorption. And for that, I like a product called Tri-Fortify Orange by Research Nutritionals. It's well absorbed for most people. If you don't have it as a liposomal variety, it doesn't get absorbed, okay? So you throw your money away. But if you wrap it up microscopically, often it will be absorbed well enough. And if you do this Tri-Fortify Orange, 5 milliliters 1 time a day. Now, some people don't care for the taste of it, or they just can't tolerate glutathione. In which case, another way to raise glutathione is to take the building blocks, okay? So the building blocks for glutathione, one of those is something called N-acetylcysteine, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, and use that with alpha lipoic acid, which also is one of the building blocks for glutathione. And to do that, I usually would do about 350 milligrams twice a day. Okay, so either glutathione or do your alpha lipoic acid plus N-acetylcysteine. Okay, now about the glutathione, sometimes the oral form is not good enough, and a stronger way to do it is to breathe it in, to do nebulized treatments of it, or the absolute strongest way to do it is to do it in an IV form. If you do it as an IV, you want to do 2,500 milligrams of it, and you want to take it at least twice a week for 4 treatments to see if it's going to help. And then if it does help, you continue it on as 1 treatment 1 time a week until you seem to get maximum benefit, okay? The other option that is useful is to actually just do it as breathing treatments. And the way the breathing treatments work, you have it mixed up by a compounding pharmacy, a pharmacy that mixes up their own stuff. And it's 200 milligrams per milliliter. And as an adult, you would do 2 milliliters, which is 400 milligrams. Use a nebulizer, which is a machine that has an air compressor on it that blows air out through a tube that connects into a chamber that holds the liquid, and you breathe. It creates, as the air blows into that chamber, it creates a mist that you breathe in through a mouthpiece, okay? And you would do that twice a day. Now, just be aware when you do it, it can give kind of a burning sensation in the chest sometimes, okay? So the strongest way to get glutathione is IV. The next strongest way is breathing treatments, but the oral for most people works well. And if they can't tolerate glutathione for some reason, then you do the building blocks, which is the N-acetylcysteine, alpha lipoic acid I just talked about, okay? So number 1 to repair nerves, do glutathione or raise glutathione. Number 2, you want to repair the nerve cell membrane. And to repair the nerve cell membrane, you've got to give the fats that make up the nerve cell membrane. And they happen to be the same fats that make up the membrane that covers, that makes up the energy factories found in our cells called mitochondria. So whatever you do to repair a mitochondria is also going to help repair the cell membranes, all right? And it's great to repair mitochondria because that gives the energy that the nerves need to heal, all right? And if you're repairing the covering of the mitochondria, you're also repairing the covering of the nerve cells. So what I like to use to do that is a product called NT Factor, also by Research Nutritionals. And they do it at, you would take it as 2 pills 3 times a day for 2 months. And then after 2 months, you decrease it down to 1 pill 3 times a day for 4 more months, okay? There's been studies done looking at the benefit of it, mostly on issues of energy, but the studies show that NT Factor used over a 2-month period of time gives average energy improvements of 40%. And the people in the study reported clearer thinking because it actually helps nerve function, okay? All right. So Marisol, at a minimum, you'd be doing glutathione in one of the forms that I just talked about, be on the NT Factor, okay? I'm trying to think if I would suggest anything else. The only other thing you might think of is to be on another antioxidant that helps the mitochondria work better and therefore helps nerve function. And that's called coenzyme Q10. And I would take it as 400 milligrams twice a day. Research Nutritionals also makes another one of their products. I like Research Nutritional products. I mean, I think they make a good product, so I carry a number of them. But that they make their coenzyme Q10 is a 400 milligram pill twice a day. Okay. Now a note about coenzyme Q10: for anyone that is treating babesia with Mepron or Malarone, which Mepron is also known as atovaquone, Malarone is atovaquone plus a quinine derivative called proquinol. If you're taking anything with atovaquone in it, you cannot take coenzyme Q10. It'll make it so your babesia treatment doesn't work. Okay, so just be aware of that. All right. So Marisol, I guess what I'm looking at here in terms of helping the nerve function, one is glutathione, as we talked about, various ways to raise that. Number 2, be on the NT Factor. Number 3, look at coenzyme Q10. Yeah, I think that's what I would recommend. At least that's what I'm coming up with off the top of my head for you right now. Okay, all right. So everyone, I want to just do a quick screen share here so you can see more things. So I love glutathione, all right? Glutathione is great for a number of reasons, and I call it the great fixer. And I call it the great fixer because it does a number of things. First of all, it helps your liver work well. So it helps with liver detox and liver function. So if as a part of being on antibiotics, if your liver gets inflamed, glutathione can fix that. Glutathione helps your nerves work better. Glutathione helps with detox. Glutathione is a great antioxidant that also lowers oxidizing agents that trigger cytokines, okay? So here's my article on glutathione. You may want to look at this later. I call it the great fixer, okay? And so, again, another thing it can do is it can actually help lower cytokines, okay? And then, as you heard me say tonight, it can help repair nerve injury too. So this is a great herb. I would take a look at this, all right? And then in terms of an article that I have written about nerve injury and nerve repair, take a look at the Brain and Nerves chapter. All right, there is a article here called Neuropathy Repair, Heal That Tingling, Numbness, and Pain. In here I have the recommendations that I think I just described to you, Marisol. The other thing I would point out, everyone, take a look at this article on lithium. Lithium also helps nerves talk together and can be helpful too. The last thing for people that have nerve injury of any kind, my diet that I recommend is this Best Brain Inflammation, Pain, Energy, and Detox diet ever. It's called the Mito Food Plan. I tell you how to build it. It's a paleo-like diet. And this is a free article, okay? So for those of you that have not yet subscribed to the Treat Lyme book and you want to see the quality of the work that I do here before you decide to subscribe, this is an article that's available for free. And it's the diet I recommend to my patients as well, too. And it's the diet I use, actually. It's a diet that I'm having some good success in dealing with some health problems that I've had. That diet has given me some good benefit, too. All right? So, Marisol, I hope that helps. And I'm glad to see you figured out how to post a question here tonight. Good luck to you. All right, let's see here. Hello, Gloria. Let's see. Thanks so much for your time spent with us. You're welcome. I'm 7 months into treatment. just starting a parasite regimen of bilcoside, Purantal, and Stomectal. Do you recommend parasite treatment for all your Lyme patients? Thanks so much. So I don't recommend it for all of my Lyme patients, but there are some patients I think it is helpful for. So everyone read back through when you get a chance. Take a look at the cytokine article that I showed you earlier tonight, okay? In that article, I show you that basically when you say somebody has Lyme disease, they actually have a syndrome of too many cytokines, all right? All right, and it's the cytokines that make you feel bad. So when I treat Lyme, I'm always considering what else is triggering cytokines, okay? And one of those other factors can be co-infections. They can be yeast. And so usually the big factors are Lyme, co-infections, too many yeast in the intestines, okay? But for some people, the big factor can be that they've got a parasite infection sitting in their intestines, okay? So the people that I tend to think about treating for parasites are people that have done a lot of international travel, people that have drank from well water on a regular basis, or people that have persistent GI dysfunction even after we get rid of too many yeast, okay? Those are the people that I'm going to tend to think about treating for parasites. And I don't do this whole kind of regimen you're doing. The regimen I like to use is to use a pill of a prescription called Alinia, and that's A-L-I-N-I-A. It's a 500 milligram pill. You would do one pill twice a day, and I have people take it for 21 days, okay, so for 3 weeks, all right? Now, this regimen you're looking at is an anti-parasite regimen that I'm now seeing showing up a bit more because it's one of those ideas that Dietrich Klinghardt has been promoting, okay? I talked about Klinghardt earlier. I talked about how I think he's brilliant, but I also think he's crazy. He comes up with some stuff that's just a bit out there, okay? So one of his current things this year is to be talking about that most people with illness have chronic parasite infections, okay? And I disagree. I've talked this over with a number of my integrative medicine Lyme colleagues as well too. We think he's just gone a little bit too far here. Okay, so I don't treat everyone for parasites because I don't think it's the problem for everyone, and I don't think you need to be on this kind of a regimen he has you on. I think the Alinia is enough. The way that Alinia works, its method, the way that it works, it should hit about every kind of parasite. And so I'm more selective about who I do that anti-parasite treatments in. Again, people that have done a lot of international travel where they might have picked up parasites from their food, people that drink well water or have drank from well water, or people with persistent GI symptoms, those are the people that I'm going to be more concerned about intestinal parasites on, okay? All right, now, why don't I just rely on testing for that? Well, you know, the way we figure out if you have parasites, intestinal parasites, is we have to look in the lab at your food. And it's hard to see. They're hard to see parasite forms. So you can get negative studies, and I see this a lot, where I've got people with symptoms, a lot of GI symptoms, do the stool studies, they come back normal, and I just give them Alinia anyhow, and they get better, all right? A lot of people just get better, okay? So that tells me that what the lab capability is, and I don't care what the lab is, even labs that specialize in parasites, I think they miss it a lot too, okay? So that's what my approach is for parasites. And I described that actually in an article that you can find in the Treat Lyme book. If you look under the infection treatment plan chapter, there is an article on parasites, okay, which basically is what I just described to you here. All right, good luck to you, Gloria. And thank you for that question. Hello, John. Let's see, I tested positive for MARCoNS. Is it true that if MARCoNS and mold are not treated, then Lyme treatment will not work? How do I treat MARCoNS? Okay, so let's talk about that. So there is a, actually before I talk about that, hold on here a second. So to answer your question simply, the answer is no. Some people get better even if they don't treat their MARCoNS and their mold, but sometimes we need to go after mold toxicity issues and this thing called MARCoNS, okay? And so basically, many of you may be familiar, I have a whole Lyme disease treatment guideline called the Successful Treatment Recipe. You can find it at the www.treatlyme.net site. And if you work through that Lyme disease treatment guideline, you will see that I say don't even consider if you have a mold toxicity issue in most people until you've done a bunch of other stuff first. And about 6 to 9 months, if you're not getting better, then start looking for other causes why you might not get well. One of those causes is looking for mold toxicity issues, okay? So I don't say to begin doing it until about 6 to 9 months in treatment. The only people I'm going to go aggressively after mold toxicity issues initially are people that I hear a good story that they've had mold exposures from where they've been. And I ask questions. In a first visit with me, in addition to looking at a Lyme test and hearing about all the Lyme symptoms, I also just ask people, have you been in a building that has been wet before, that you can smell mold in, or you see black mold in that building? And if they say yes, then I ask the next question is that when you got sick? And if they say, yeah, when I was living in that building is when I got sick, then I'm going to say, guess what? I think we need to go after mold first, okay? First. But generally, for most people, mold, even if it's present, is not the major issue, okay? What the major issue is, you got to correct sleep, you got to knock cytokines down, you got to get yeast out, you need to balance hormones, you need to treat your Lyme germs, you need to get yeast out. Those are the things you start with first, okay? So those are all the key steps in the successful treatment recipe. So when you have Lyme disease, you do not need to correct everything that's wrong. You just need to correct enough stuff that the body can step in and start taking care of itself, okay? Or deal with the mold toxins, for instance, okay? So at some point, though, if you're not getting better, then you do need to go after mold if it's present. Or if your initial problem really is mold toxicity and not Lyme, meaning you got sick in that house with black mold, then go after your black mold first, okay? All right, this is just how my general approach works, all right? So anyhow, back to your question. So there is a physician named Richie Shoemaker who has come up with an elaborate theory about mold toxicity and Lyme toxins issues too, okay? And he goes one step further to say that if you happen to have mold toxin issue or Lyme toxin issues and you get those toxins out and you remain ill, then he has developed a whole theory about something he calls chronic inflammatory response syndrome, of which having an infection in your nose called MARCoNS could be part of that, okay? So based on Richie Shoemaker's work, we know that approximately 25% of people have a genetic programming error where they are not able to remove Lyme and or mold toxins once they get in them, okay? And what happens is in 75% of us, our immune system sees a Lyme toxin, sees a mold toxin, and will tag it for removal. They then go to the liver tagged, and the liver sees that they've been tagged and takes them and transforms them from being a fat-based toxin into a water-based toxin. They get moved out into the intestines, and then they get pooped out. And we're not bothered by it. That's what happens in 75% of us. 25% of us, though, those toxins get in us. They don't get tagged correctly. The immune system doesn't tag them. They go to the liver not tagged, and they come out of the liver still a fat-based toxin. And as a fat-based toxin, they get reabsorbed again. So we just keep looping in these toxins. We don't get them out, okay? Those toxins inflame cytokines. Those toxins cause cytokines, okay? So mold toxicity issue can look exactly like Lyme does because Lyme disease also triggered cytokines, okay? So the first step when you have this problem is get rid of your toxins by binding them. And you want to use a toxin binder like cholestyramine or something called fractionated pectin powder. Those are my two favorites. And if you spend a good 2 to 3 months removing those toxins and you remain sick, then it means there's something else going on. Richie Shoemaker doesn't believe in Lyme disease, basically, okay? So he thinks there's got to be something else inflaming you, all right? He thinks Lyme is only treated with 1 month of antibiotics and you're fine. He's wrong, okay? I just want to let you know he's wrong. So in his system, then he's come up with this whole other thing called chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which he believes means you've had mold exposures, you haven't gotten better. That now has set you up to have inflammation. And one of the things that has set you up have is a bacterial infection in your nose called methicillin-resistant coagulase-negative strep. That's MARCoNS, okay? So in his protocol, the next thing you need to do when you've got this thing called chronic inflammatory response syndrome is if you test positive for MARCoNS, then you treat for that, okay? And then if you get rid of MARCoNS and you're still sick, he says don't look for Lyme, he doesn't believe it's there. Then he says, guess what? It means that the inflammation now is just perpetuating itself. And so he's got about 7 other steps you do to break this inflammation that's perpetuating itself based upon blood testing that he does, okay? That's a simplified version of Richie Shoemaker, okay? But Richie misses the big problem. The big problem is Lyme, and Richie just denies that it exists, okay? So generally in looking at Shoemaker's work in somebody that has Lyme, I have found benefit out of following his ideas to remove mold toxins. I have found benefit in some people at getting MARCoNS out. Beyond that, the rest of his theory, I don't think works in somebody that has Lyme disease, okay? It just doesn't. And so there's about 7 other steps you would follow. I have tried those. I find practically no benefit in the world of Lyme disease, okay? I think it's a nice theory. I think it probably works well in people that don't have Lyme, but when you get into Lyme, the next steps of Richie Shoemaker's theory just do not work well, okay? Because I think he's missing the big problem, which is Lyme. So anyhow, how do you get rid of MARCoNS? Well, you do rifampin as an antibiotic, and you take it 1 pill twice a day, 300 milligrams. And you use a nose spray that has, he calls it the bag nose spray, but what it's got in it is something called Bactroban. It's got EDTA, and it's got gentamicin, okay? Bactroban and gentamicin kill bacteria. The EDTA he uses because he thinks it removes biofilm, slime layers that cover the MARCoNS that block out treatment. And so that's why that's included in there as well too, right? Generally, you're going to treat for about 2 or 3 months, or for about 2 months, reculture, and then see if it's gone. Yeah, I think it can, but again, it helps rarely. The big thing that works in Shoemaker is if you have mold toxins, then you get them out. Okay, the other stuff, even the MARCoNS, marginal benefit, but after MARCoNS, the other parts of his protocol, they don't work in the world of Lyme. All right, so that's a very long-winded response. If you want to read more about Shoemaker's work, his site is at www.survivingmold.com. He can be a bit dense. He's hard to read, even for physicians. We often get lost with his stuff, but I have taken the time to figure it out. I've actually had a number of conversations with Richie as well too, to try to figure out his stuff. But I will, if you go to his website, read through it, you might find it's a little bit hard to read though, okay? All right, good luck to you, John, and thank you for that question. Oh, in terms of how do you dose the cholestyramine and how do you dose the citrus pectin that I was just telling you about, let me show you the article that I have on that. So here's my detoxification chapter, and within the detoxification chapter, you want to take a look at the article called Lyme and Mold Toxins, a Lyme Bite, okay? And within this article, I have dosing information about cholestyramine and about something called fractionated pectin powder, which is the natural medicine way of binding up those toxins, okay? All right, let me go back here. All right, thanks for that question, John. Good luck to you. Hello, Diane. Let's see. Well, thank you. I'm glad you're glad to be here. I think you posted last time from Eureka, Missouri. I appreciate the name Eureka. So anyhow, there you go. I was going to say something about the primary yesterday, but I think I'll keep politics out of it here tonight. Okay. All right. Thank you for being here, Diane. All right. Hello, Linda. Let's see. Okay, so I thought I had seen this question already. I'm sorry. Sometimes people post their questions twice, and I just wanted to make sure briefly that I hadn't seen it. Hold on just a minute. I have a dry mouth tonight. Just a second here. Okay, let's see. Good evening, Dr. Ross. After treating Lyme, Bart, and Babesia aggressively for over 3 years with pharmaceuticals, I have moved to using herbals mainly. However, the Bart and Babs keep taking turns returning, and we have to add the pharma drugs back in. What might we be doing incorrectly? Is not yeast. Boy, Linda, that's a complex problem, and I'm not going to have a good answer for you other than a few observations. So I'd be glad to help you figure it out, but I would need much more information than I'm able to get than what you've written here, okay? I would need to have a give and take dialogue with you. So one thing that you might want to take a look at, and I'll just show this to you now, and then I'll come back and give you some further comments. So everyone, I have a service available for people that are not able to actually come out here and see me. in my office. It's called, you'll find it on this online consult tab right here that I'm moving my mouse over it right now. And I call it my one-to-one medical consult service. Before you decide if you want to do this, please read this page thoroughly, okay? It tells you how it works, but it also describes the limits, all right? And the big limit with this consult is I can't prescribe or write tests without physically examining a person, okay? My medical board would not allow me to do that, okay? But I can visit with you over the internet. I do it as a video visit via Skype so that I can see you, because I learn things by looking at a person. And generally, about 99% of what we do, we don't need to examine a person. So what I can do in those one-to-one consults is come up with good treatment plan for you, okay? And I can come up with an herbal treatment plan you can implement without having to see another doctor. Sometimes I do recommend prescriptions, and in that case, if you're not able to come out here once for me to prescribe, in that case, what you would need to do is see if your doctor could follow through with those prescriptions, okay? So I show that to you, Linda, if that's an option for you to consider, or others, if you have detailed problems that you would like my input on, that's one way of going ahead and doing that, all right? Okay, now back to your question. So my experience, Linda, is that about 95% of the time, we can get rid of Babesia and Bartonella with treatment. There are 5% of people that have relapse in Lyme, in Bart, and 5% of the time people have relapse in Babesia. When I get into issues of having multiple relapses, I have found it useful to go to multiple drug herb regimens. So for instance, I might even build a Babesia treatment that uses 4 or 5 different prescriptions at a time to kill it, okay? I might build a Bartonella treatment that relies on 4, I don't think I've ever done a 5. There is a way to do a 5 though. 4 or 5 different prescriptions or herbs together to treat Bartonella, all right? So those are just some things to think about. Sometimes it is just a matter of putting more and more poisons in, all right? The other observation I'll give you too is that you need to do things to boost your immune system. And those are the common things I recommend, which is in my successful treatment recipe. The whole successful treatment recipe is really about boosting your immune system, okay? Get sleep, lower your cytokines, knock yeast out if they're there. You're telling me they're not there, but okay, but I had to say that, all right? Support your adrenals, support your thyroid, all right? And in addition to doing that, when I get into these kind of problems, I'm going to use transfer factors. I like using something called transfer factor Lyme Plus. It has transfer factors in it that are designed or that are specifically for Bartonella, Lyme, which is Borrelia, Babesia, Ehrlichia, Anaplasma, and some viruses as well too. Transfer factors, every one, are made by the immune system. For the sake of describing what they are, there's a part of the immune system I call the detectives, and another part called the army. It's a very simple explanation, okay? The detectives can see that a germ is there. They can even identify what it is, but they don't fight the war. They got to give information to the army. And one of the things that they do that with is with a transfer factor, okay? So if we give transfer factors to the army, it's going to rev up to fight those things that the transfer factors are for. Transfer factor Lyme Plus has transfer factors in it for Bartonella and Babesia and Lyme, okay? So I would do transfer factor Lyme Plus, 1 pill twice a day. That is made by a company called Research Nutritionals. The other thing I would do to boost your immune system on top of that is I would get on a good mushroom mix. I like working with a mushroom formula called the Immune Builder 5 mushroom formula. That's the one I work with. And I like to have people take it as 1 pill 3 times a day, okay? So mushrooms also can help boost your immune system here as well too, all right? Those are just some thoughts. I might have more specific ideas, but you know, generally just use a lot of poisons. Build your treatments that have 4 and 5 different agents, herbal and prescription, that kill Babesia, that kill Bartonella, and then specifically, in addition to following a successful treatment recipe, also use mushrooms and use transfer factor Lyme Plus. Those would be just some thoughts that I have, okay? All right, good luck to you, Linda. All right, let me get rid of that. Hello, Debbie. Let's see. I have hearing loss, vibration, sizzling, buzzing, and ringing in both ears. I also have severe head pressure at times. I test positive for Borrelia miyamotoi, and brucellosis. Do you think I need IV Rocephin to get well? I don't know. I would need to know more things about you, but the one comment I would have is I hope somebody is looking at Bartonella with you. Bartonella can give these really recalcitrant, difficult to treat neurologic conditions when coupled with Lyme, okay? So I would look at not just what you've identified here, but, and again, Bartonella testing is horrid, okay? I mean, if it came back negative, it doesn't mean you don't have it. I already made that case tonight at the beginning of the webinar. But you can have Bartonella. If you have a lot of symptoms of Bartonella, you should treat for Bartonella. And one of the things that make us think of Bartonella is neurologic problems, severe neurologic problems. Those are the things that make us think about Bartonella and treating for them, okay? So that's just an observation that I have for you, all right? All right. Good luck to you, Debbie. Hello, Jackie. Will you be talking more tonight about the LDI treatment for Lyme? I guess so. You just asked the question. So I have a whole article on it, okay? And I think that's probably what I would direct everyone to take a look at rather than taking the time in the webinar tonight, because my thinking about LDI has not changed since I posted that article, and that article even has a video, okay? So LDI, everyone, is something called low-dose immunotherapy. It is a treatment that is pretty new to us. It was developed about back in February 2015 by a physician named Ty Vincent in Alaska. It's a way of trying to decrease inflammation in the immune system so that you feel better. And he thinks by decreasing the inflammation, maybe the immune system works better and even gets rid of Lyme. I solidly disagree with that. I think you cannot just do LDI and not be on antibiotics. Does it work? He thinks it helps 90% of the time. I've talked to a number of my colleagues that actually are Lyme doctors, though Ty is not a Lyme doctor. And many of us are not getting those kind of results. For me personally, I only have about 6 or 7 people on it right now. I don't have enough results to report back to you. I do try new innovative treatments all the time in my practice, but I usually try them first on a small number of people. So the only comment I can give you is I still don't know enough as to whether this is really going to do the things that Dr. Vincent says it does. I am doing it on some of my more complicated patients right now, and it is just too early for me to tell if it's going to work. But for more information, everybody, about LDI and the potential benefits that it has for people, and also the reason I'm cautious about using it without antibiotics, take a look at the article that I have written about it. It is available for free. Let me go ahead and show you where you would find that. So take a look in the new updates chapter here. That's one way to find it. You can find it here. It's this one called LDI, Bring on the Regulators, okay? And there I have done a whole video. So the thing I said in the video is what I could spend the next 10 minutes talking about here, and rather not do that, rather get on to other questions, okay? But take a look here at this. I think this will give you all the information you need. What I say here is not changed from what I just said, other than I still don't have enough working experience yet to report back to you, okay? All right, thank you, Jackie. Hello, Linda. Let's see, I've read research that says medical marijuana, especially the oils, can kill the Lyme bacteria. Please comment. So, yes, it can. Do I think it's really that helpful? No. I don't mean to be crass, but let me try to outline that just a little bit, all right? So I happen to be in a state where we have legalized marijuana. We have it legalized in 2 ways, okay? So I'm in Washington State in the United States. For those of you that are listening from abroad, we have a lot of people that listen from outside the states. So in Washington State, we have a recreational marijuana law. So people can get marijuana here legally now. And we also have a medicinal marijuana law that was in place before our recent recreational law, okay? So I see the benefits of medicinal marijuana. And medicinal marijuana, there's really 2 ways that it can be used. There's two major active chemicals. There's one called THC and another chemical called CBD, all right? So THC is really found in large quantity within the bud of the plant, all right? So that's what people use when they're using it recreationally. And it's THC that gives you the high. But THC also can help with pain. It can help with nausea, it can help with appetite, it can help with a lot of the symptoms that people with Lyme get, but often it comes at the price of getting high, okay? All right, the other way that you can work with medicinal marijuana is to use CBD, and CBD oil specifically. And it's oil that comes from the green parts of the plant, okay? So the leaves and the stems, that's rich in CBD. Now, when you use CBD oil, it always will have a component of THC in it, okay? But generally, people are not going to get high on CBD. It's better tolerated. Occasionally, I will find a person that needs THC for pain control. THC in some people will do a better job of pain control, all right? Now, both THC and CBD have one drawback, and that is that they can cause thinking impairment. Okay, that is the one drawback to doing medicinal marijuana. But generally, it will help with all the other symptoms. Okay, now, can it kill germs? There are petri dish experiments that show that it can. And because of that, one of my colleagues up in British Columbia in Canada, Dr. Ernie Murakami, has become a big proponent of using CBD oil in Lyme. But what I would tell you is, yeah, it does work on a petri dish. But petri dish, everyone, is in an experiment that's controlled. It's not in a human, okay? And as I see what happens with my patients that are on medicinal marijuana, I am not really seeing improved benefit in terms of how their health is doing that is sustained even after they come off the medicinal marijuana. I don't think it's doing a great kill of Lyme. Now, I know Dr. Murakami has another opinion, but I think he's basing that more on the petri dish experiments, okay? So I am a proponent of medicinal marijuana, but I'm more of a proponent of it not from the germ-killing aspects. I'm a proponent of it because it does a great job in helping with a lot of the symptoms that people with Lyme get, okay? Now, regarding research on medicinal marijuana, it's really limited because the United States government has had its, well, yeah, I'll make a political commentary. The United States government has been stupid about this in terms of outlawing it and not letting people get it. Because of that, they have not allowed research to be done on it. And so they have hurt the citizens of this country and not allowing research to go forward that shows benefit of this, okay? So most of our research isn't that good. Most of it is just what we see, okay? And I'm hopeful that someday our government here in the States will kind of open itself up a little bit to realizing there's great benefit out of this plant and that we should be doing more in the way of research on it, okay? Sorry I got a little strong with my opinion, but I think our government has really been wrong on this one, all right? So I hope that answers your question. That's my comments on medicinal marijuana, all right? Oh, one other thing about CBD oil. Many of you know you can find a lot of the CBD that you can get on Amazon, and you can find CBD oil on Amazon. It's derived from hemp. It may not work as well, likely does not work as well as that is derived from marijuana, okay? I just want to make you aware of that, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Linda. Thank you for that question. All right, let's see here. Hello, Linda. Let's see. Dr. Ross, curious on your thoughts on Cytoquel to help with inflammation as well as Neuroprotect to help with mast cell activation. Daughter has severe Lyme co-infections, autoimmune encephalitis, and autism. All right, so Lisa, I am not familiar with Neuroprotect, so I can't comment on it. I'm not familiar with the product, okay? Cytoquel is, if you look at my recent article that I wrote on cytokines, so first of all, in the Treat Lyme book and on my website, due to Food and Drug Administration regulations and the Federal Trade Commission that regulates commerce, I am not allowed anymore to actually put a product brand name in any of the articles, okay? They require a certain degree of science that's been done on humans that actually proves that something works before you can put a brand name of something in an article, okay? So you will not see that in my cytokine article. However, what you do see in my cytokine article is I say that you could use a anti-cytokine combination, okay? And what I was referring to is Cytoquel, all right? I couldn't use the name in the article because of regulations, but I can tell you what it is. It's Cytoquel. So Cytoquel has in it a number of things that lower cytokines. It has curcumin, it has resveratrol, It has black tea extract that's rich in ECGG, and it also has some tocopherols, which is vitamin E. And through various mechanisms, those all work together to decrease cytokine production. For some people, I find it to be more helpful than just using curcumin alone. The one problem I have with Cytoquel is the manufacturer has a proprietary formula, and they don't tell us how many milligrams of curcumin are in it, how many milligrams of Japanese knot or resveratrol is in it, etc. Okay, so I can't do a direct comparison with the way that the milligrams I use on my curcumin with milligrams of curcumin in the Cytoquel. But the manufacturer says to use Cytoquel as 1 pill 3 times a day. I'm finding more benefit at going to 2 pills 3 times a day. Okay, I just want to let you know that. Okay, and yeah, I think it can be helpful. And I just don't know enough about the neuroprotect to be able to comment on that one. Okay, all right. Good luck to you, Lisa. Oh, everyone, the Cytoquel is made by Research Nutritionals. Okay, as you know, I've mentioned that company a number of times tonight. I actually believe they make some really good products. And they're doing some of the more cutting edge work these days on supplements that we can use in fatiguing disorders. And while I'm at it, let me just do a quick screen share here. I want to show you one thing. Okay, so, all right, so I'm going to go, this is, everyone, if you're looking at where to get some of the supplements I've recommended tonight, one possibility that you could look at is my supplement site. It's called Marty Ross MD Terrabrook ND Supplements. And we do carry all of the research nutritional products here, okay? So you can come here to supplements, we can find it by medical problem, or you can go by manufacturer, and there's the research nutritionals products, okay, including the Cytoquel, all right? We carry a number of them. I think we only carry about 9 right now. I'm going to probably be adding more of these over time. I know that with research nutritionals, I know in general that they are harder to find in the internet just because research nutritionals only sells to physicians and does not allow for resale on Amazon and any of the other supplement sites. But I happen to be one of the few sites that you can buy these online. Okay, so anytime you buy here too, you are supporting the work that I do in these webinars, etc. The other reason that I would encourage you to get the supplements we have here is in setting up our store, we tried to pick brands of supplements that, in our review of how they source their materials, they source them for the most active ingredient, okay? And sometimes in the world of supplements, you get what you pay for, all right? So it just so happens that, yeah, they may be a little more expensive, but they're using the best source of the active ingredient, so it's a better chance of working. Secondly, we try to choose products that have a low chance of having allergic fillers that have been added into them that might harm a person with Lyme disease, okay? So we've tried to find what we think are the best, most active, and least harmful products as well. And so if you're looking for like the curcumin I recommend, go there, search for it, okay? Or if you're looking for the quercetin I recommend, or etc., any of the products I recommend tonight, just look there, you'll see what we carry, okay? All right, thank you for that question. All right, hello Debbie, let's see, what are your thoughts on jawbone cavitations? Do you think tick-borne illness can cause osteomyelitis in the jaw? Will antibiotics reach this area, or do you think surgery along with antibiotics is necessary? Will IV Ro7 hurt? Okay, so cavitations, everyone, are literally caves, cavitations within the bone, and we're usually talking about dental cavitations, all right? And so they're pockets of infection. Because they're pockets and the blood flow to the bone in the jaw maybe not be that good, I usually have not seen IV Ro7 work. If somebody's got cavitations, what can work is either doing ozone or hydrogen peroxide injections in those areas, okay, because those can kill. And I think it's okay if you're going to do them within a limited area. Those could work. And sometimes removing, actually going in and cleaning out that area, having a dental procedure that cleans those out can be helpful as well too, okay? But there is a dentist that I work with here in town that would actually go in and do ozone injections in those areas and seems to have some success doing that, all right? All right. Thanks for that question, Debbie. All right. Hello, Debbie H. Good to see you back here again. Let's see. Hi, Marty. Can MethylGuard cause agitation? My daughter is having trouble increasing her dose beyond one tablet every other day. Yeah, so Debbie, one of the things I pointed out tonight when I was talking about MTHFR, that if you've got quite a roadblock, you've had a lot of toxins build up, as you start bringing them through, and if you go too aggressively, for some people, it triggers more cytokines. So that could be agitating to her, okay? Also, Bs can be stimulating, okay? Vitamin Bs, any kind of vitamin Bs, whether it's the 5-MTHF in here or whether it's the methylcobalamin, they can be stimulating. So it just might be that your daughter's maximum because of either the Bs agitating her or the cytokines agitating her. It just may be that she's only going to be able to do one every other day. She is getting benefits still, though. I just want to let you know that. Okay? All right. Well, benefit at least for treating the MTHFR. Thank you for that question. Hello, Denny. Let's see. Hi, there's a lot going around about whole leaf stevia and it kills Lyme. What do you think? But it's interesting. That's probably going to be one of my next articles. I actually have finally read the article that was published in December, so that it's actually pretty recent. So the author of this article, one of the authors is Eva Chapi, and that's S-A-P-I. Eva is doing some great work. I like her work. She's running a bench science lab out in New Haven, Connecticut, that's basically devoted to doing foundation work for Lyme. So it's not human experiments, okay? And that's the big thing I want you to know. Her work is not humans. They're basically glorified petri dish experiments, okay? And so they're in what's being seen in the lab. We don't know if what she's seeing is going to work in humans, all right? I just want to start by saying that. So Eva, for instance, is where I got the idea to use Banderol Cemento. It came from some of her work. And in her work, she showed that those two herbs mixed together get rid of all three forms of the Lyme germ and wipe out 100% of biofilm. And that is work that is great, showing biofilm. And also that work from 5 years ago was one of the first ways that we can see about treating what is now being called persistent Lyme. Persistent Lyme is Lyme that probably has moved into biofilms and has moved more into cyst form and is not growing rapidly enough, okay? And so Banderol Cemento was one of the ideas based on her research that seemed to do a good job about that. She now is looking at using stevia, okay? And what she is able to show is that on petri dish experiments, stevia seems to do a good job at killing Lyme that has turned into more persister forms, which is biofilm, cyst. And I think she showed you, I have to go back and reread it because I need to read it again before I post, that using stevia did get rid of some of the biofilm. And so she's advocating it as something that we might want to use to start treating persistent Lyme, which is Lyme that's not responding to antibiotics, okay? The problem with her study, though, is we don't know how it's going to be in humans. And it's one of those things, as I said, I'm probably going to start trying it out on some of my patients to see if we get benefit. And I'll be using it to see if it helps more with biofilms and also to see if it helps move treatments forward, especially when they're blocked. So the bottom line is interesting work. I don't know how it's going to work in a living human being, okay? Because it's very possible that stevia gets destroyed in the stomach in the way that it doesn't get absorbed into our bloodstream to do the work on Lyme that her petri dish experiments would suggest works, okay? So that's my thought on it. But look for a more thorough article. I need to review that article in more detail. I need to learn a little bit more about what it did on biofilms. I'm not remembering it correctly tonight. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. It might help. I don't think you're going to hurt yourself by trying it. The amount to use, who knows? These were petri dish experiments. But anyone that says this is now going to be the cure-all for persistent Lyme or biofilms, I think it's way too early to tell. Because, again, I don't know how that works in a human. Okay? All right. Thanks for that question. All right. Let's see. All right. Hello, Susan. Let's see. I am a Canadian diagnosed with Lyme in December. but was told Ontario doctors are not allowed to treat Lyme over 30 days. Mine is into 3 years. I'm awaiting Cowden's protocol until I see an infectious disease doctor in May, but was told I need antibiotics if ever hope to be rid of it. So unfortunately, the Canadian system is just an absolute mess right now. They go after doctors that treat Lyme up there in a bad way. They do in my country too. It's just that some of us are fortunate enough to have some state boards that have been a little bit more liberal. And I happen to be in Washington State. My board has been a little bit more liberal about allowing us to treat Lyme, but even I have been investigated by my medical board for treating Lyme, okay? So all of us that treat have risk. But in terms, I'm just going to one part about your question. So the Cowden protocol, I think, can be helped well, how can I say this? I think there's two really good parts about Cowden protocol. It's called Banderol Cemento. Those are two herbs that, in my experience, when I pull those out and I work with them together, help get rid of Lyme about 85 to 90% of the time, okay? The rest of the Cowden protocol, though, I do not find to be that helpful. And in general, the Cowden protocol may help people about 40 or 50% of the time. So I would just say that. If it's the only thing you have access to, you might want to look at it. But what I would really steer you towards is looking at my successful treatment recipe, which basically covers you for all aspects of Lyme and the things that Cowden misses, okay? So Cowden does not do a thorough enough job of helping with hormonal support. Cowden doesn't do a thorough enough job of helping you figure out if you might have too many yeast in your intestines that's making you sick and give you ideas to get rid of it. Cowden doesn't do enough work on getting rid of cytokines. Cowden does not do enough work on getting sleep. I can go down the list. Cowden is a weak protocol. If you're looking for a protocol you can put into place that gives you options to address all aspects of your Lyme disease, I would encourage you to take a look at the successful treatment recipe, which I think does a far better job, and you can build it using supplements until you get help with prescription antibiotics, okay? So let me show it to you. So I'm gonna go ahead. I gotta get to the right place. Okay, so back in treatlyme.net, look over here on the Lyme disease guidelines tab, okay? And this is my Lyme disease guidelines. And so first of all, when I wrote it, I said we got to have people get sleep. Oh, something's going on here. Actually, I'm not going to go through it step by step right now, but read through here. I give you options. I even talk about diet as part of this. Okay, Cowden mentions nothing about diet. Okay, this is a much more thorough protocol, and most of it you can implement using herbs and using your own thought process. Okay, all right. Let me go back here. All right, good luck to you, Susan. And everyone, you know, the successful treatment recipe, just a quick comment about it. All the steps that I mentioned in there are things you should do even if you're on prescription antibiotics, okay? You gotta deal with hormones, you gotta deal with sleep, you gotta get cytokines down. If you are seeing a prescription pad only doctor and you are not addressing all those other things that I'm talking about, your chances of getting rid of Lyme or getting better are much more limited, okay? So take a look at those things. They are very helpful no matter where you are in treatment. The issues that I raised in the successful treatment recipe, if you take steps to deal with those, or if you take those steps, you'll go a long way towards helping yourself to recover from chronic Lyme, okay? Thank you for that question, Susan, and good luck to you. All right, let's see here. Hello, Eric. Let's see, in the early morning hours here, you must be Australia, I think is where you're talking about then. Or maybe you're from Australia, I should say. My wife, who is being treated for Lyme-Barre band, feels a vibration in her upper torso and upper arms. What causes this? Are we missing anything? Mahalo. Well, I like the mahalo, but that's still, I don't think you're quite sitting in Hawaii right now at the time that you say here. Anyhow, so vibration is a neurologic condition. And I find that it often is there when there is BART mixed in with Lyme, okay? So if she's being treated with the antimicrobials for those, you've got that part The other thing you might want to do, and so it's a sign of an agitation, inflammation within the nervous system. That's what's causing it. Okay, so agitation, inflammation being triggered by Lyme and Bartonella within the nervous system, and ultimately get rid of those germs is what's going to help. Some things you can do though in the meantime to help calm that down. One is to try lithium orotate. Lithium is a mineral that is an essential element for a nerve function. Okay, it actually helps nerves talk together, or we call that nerve signaling, so they work better. Okay. In addition, it helps calm an agitated nervous system down. 5 milligrams 3 times a day. It's a supplement sold as lithium orotate, O-R-O-T-A-T-E. 5 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay. Now, lithium, many of you may be aware of, is something we use in another agitation condition, which is called manic depression or bipolar illness. Okay. So it can help calm a person down when they're really manic. But when we use it that way, we're using it more to 600 to 900 milligram range. What I'm talking about using for your wife is 15 milligrams a day. Okay. So I want to be clear. I'm using it as a nutrient. Okay. The other thing, Eric, that you might want to try with your wife is called L-theanine. It's L-theanine, T-H-E-A-N-I-N-E. It is a component of green tea. It's not caffeine. And it's converted in the brain into a chemical called GABA. Our brain has lots of GABA receptors. And if we give more GABA to a GABA receptor, it actually helps calm things down. It can decrease that agitation, okay? Another way to increase GABA or to deal with those GABA receptors is actually a prescription called gabapentin. It's also known as Neurontin. It's an anti-seizure medicine. And it's a GABA analog. It's a GABA-like chemical that also can bind to GABA receptors. And that would be something that her prescriber could try for her as well, too. Okay, I wouldn't do that and L-theanine, though. Either the L-theanine or the gabapentin would be an option. And then also look at that lithium orotate, too. Okay? All right. Good luck, Eric. I hope your wife does better, too. All right, let's see here. Daniel, you have written a really long question, and before I post it, I just want to skim it because it just might be too much for here. Just a second here. Daniel, I'm sorry. Daniel, I would need more information, actually. I'm not even going to post the question. It's just so complex what's happening with you. My heart goes out to you, too. Daniel, I'll tell you what I would like to do for you. If you would go ahead and rewrite this question to me in an email, send it to me, and I'll correspond with you that way. I think it may be a better way of going, okay? And the email address to use is docmarty, it's D-O-C-M-A-R-T-Y at thehealingartspartnership.net. So that's TheHealingarts partnership.net. Okay, rewrite that question to me. I'd like to work with you, but I think there may be a better format for us to do this in, and I'll pose that to you when you go ahead and send me that question. All right? All right. Thank you for the question, though, Daniel. All right, let me do that. All right. Hello, Jackie. Essie, can you talk about the pros and cons of hyperbaric oxygen therapy? Is it considered too much in terms of oxidative stress, or is it safe? Okay. So hyperbaric oxygen, to be effective, everyone, you need to find a dive tank that will take you down to 2.4 atmospheres, okay? So that means it needs to be a hard shell tank, not a soft shell tank. So many people can get hyperbaric oxygen. Doctors sometimes have in their offices. Usually they're soft shell tanks. You need a hard shell tank, all right? The idea behind hyperbaric oxygen is that we put you under high pressure and you breathe in 100% oxygen. All right, that high pressure forces the oxygen into your tissues, and oxygen can kill germs. You also sometimes can get even more benefit if you're on antibiotics at the time, because they get forced into the tissues as well too, okay? Also, that pressure and oxygen can heal and repair damaged nerve tissue, okay? And it plays with a concept called brain plasticity, where the brain in the right environment can regrow and can heal itself, all right? Now, there was a heyday of hyperbaric oxygen in Lyme, and that happened to be about maybe 5-7 years ago. Everyone was trying it out. We thought this might be the big thing that was going to lead to Lyme cures and Lyme saving and all that. And the truth is, it didn't work that well. It's not that helpful in the end. There are some people that do get some benefit, but on the whole, people do not. I tend to reserve it more as a last resort kind of situation for Lyme, okay? The other time I will do it is if I've got somebody with severe cognitive impairment and the antibiotics have not worked, I may consider hyperbaric oxygen because, again, the brain has plasticity. It can help heal it, okay? So the reason I'm not a big advocate of it, I used to try it out with my patients, is on the whole, it just doesn't work that well, all right? I'm sorry about that, Jackie. All right, thank you for your question. Chronic inflammation in the GI system and mouth. Do you recognize? So I already talked about the KPU, HPU disorder, and I'm not a big believer in it, okay? And let's see, the other part of your question, have you seen oral and GI presentations of chronic inflammation in the GI system and the mouth? Yeah, I mean, the big thing is you can see redness and inflammation. The signs and symptoms of the GI system is inflamed. It may not work right. You may have constipation, you may have diarrhea. I think I would need a little bit more specific information about what you're trying to ask here to answer that a little more thoroughly. Okay? All right. Thanks, Melvin. Hello, Andrea. See, my Lyme started out at IC, but I have horrible pelvic pain, nerve pain. Have you heard of this with Lyme? So I think what you mean by IC is interstitial cystitis. We usually use those letters to refer to a problem, which is inflammation of the bladder. We call it interstitial cystitis if we identify that there's not a bladder infection with common bacteria that give bladder infections, okay? So we see interstitial cystitis in one of the Lyme co-infections called Bartonella. And so, yeah, we see interstitial cystitis quite often. Usually it means Bartonella is on board, okay? And just for those symptoms, what you can do, you got to treat your Bart. You also have to treat your Lyme too. But also what can help with interstitial cystitis is 2 supplements. One is, so interstitial cystitis, everyone, is inflammation of the bladder lining, and it's not caused by the common bacteria infection, okay? And it gives a lot of burning on urination, urge to pee, pelvic pain, frequency of urination. And so what can help are 2 herbs. One is glucosamine sulfate. Glucosamine sulfate, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Glucosamine, many of you may be familiar with as being something that builds cartilage. We often use it for people that have cartilage destruction in their knees or their joints to help with pain in those because it can rebuild the cartilage. But it also is converted in the bladder into a microscopic slime layer that covers the lining of the bladder so that the urine in the bladder doesn't irritate that inflamed lining, okay? The other thing I would combine with it is quercetin. That's Quercetin. Quercetin, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And what that does is it decreases the inflammation in the bladder lining, okay? So glucosamine, quercetin, okay? That's what I would wind up trying for that. It can actually make a big difference, okay? All right. Thank you for that question. All right, let me see where we are here. All right, so that's going to be it for me for tonight, everyone. It's about 6:28 right now. So I've had a good time with you tonight. I know I didn't get to all the questions. As many of you know, probably if you're asking me questions, I've written an article about it. So for instance, in my quick overview here, I saw somebody was asking about mitochondria. Well, go to the chapter on energy, sign up for the book, and read what I've written about how you fix your mitochondria. There's an article in there about how to do it, okay? So if I didn't get to your questions, there probably is an article in the Treat Lyme book about it. The way you can find out if it is, go to the Treat Lyme book at www.treatlyme.net, click on the table of contents, look at the chapter you think you might find help in, look and see if I've written something about it. Chances are I have, okay? And that's where you can get the useful information. I've enjoyed myself tonight. We have another one of these next week. Tomorrow morning, you are going to get an email from me that will have a link to the recording of tonight's webinar. It will also have a link to sign up for next week's webinar as well, too. And I hope you'll join me for that. In a second here, I'm going to take you over as I close out the webinar. You're going to be redirected over to www.treatlyme.net. If you have not done so yet and would like to support the work we're doing here, I'd appreciate it if you actually become a subscriber to the Treat Lyme book. And the way you can do that is click on any article you want to read. If you haven't subscribed, the subscribe page will pop up. Choose an option. Just realize you're supporting the work that I do here. And that work, that publication has helped many, many people across the world get better when the kind of work they're doing with their physicians isn't working. And especially if they don't have a physician, that work is helping them too. I've got more articles to write and more things to publish and more information to get out there. And when you purchase the subscription, you help me with my mission, which is to help as many people as possible recover from this horrible illness. So you become part of my team. And I appreciate that when you do that. So I'm going to redirect you there in a minute, and I hope to see you at next week's webinar. And for all those that asked questions tonight, thank you very much too, because you created the webinar along with me tonight. Good night, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.